Something powerful happens when a child of God seeks to know more about Him and His beloved Son. Nowhere are those truths taught more clearly and powerfully than in the Book of Mormon.
God always provides safety for the soul, and with the Book of Mormon, He has again done that in our time. Remember this declaration by Jesus Himself: "Whoso treasureth up my word shall not be deceived. And in the last days, neither your heart nor your faith will fail you."
Chapter 62. Moroni marches to the aid of Pahoran in the land of Gideon. The kingmen who refuse to defend their country are put to death. Pahoran and Moroni retake Nephihah. Many Lamanites join the people of Ammon. Teancum slays Ammoron and is in turn slain. The Lamanites are driven from the land, and peace is established. Helaman returns to the ministry and builds up the church, about 62 to 57 BC. And now it came to pass that when Moroni had received this epistle, his heart did take courage, and was filled with exceedingly great joy because of the faithfulness of Pahoran, that he was not also a traitor to the freedom and cause of his country. But he did also mourn exceedingly because of the iniquity of those who had driven Pahoran from the judgment seat, yea, in fine, because of those who had rebelled against their country and also their God. And it came to pass that Moroni took a small number of men according to the desire of Pahoran, and gave Lehi and Teancum command over the remainder of his army, and took his march towards the land of Gideon. And he did raise the standard of liberty in whatsoever place he did enter. Love that. I have a flag of his standard of liberty. And gained whatsoever force he could in all his march towards the land of Gideon. And it came to pass that thousands did flock unto his standard, and to take up their swords in the defense of their freedom, that they might not come into bondage. And thus, when Moroni had gathered together whatsoever men he could in all his march, he came to the land of Gideon, and uniting his forces with those of Pahoran, they became exceedingly strong, even stronger than the men of Pachus, who was the king of those dissenters who had driven the freemen out of the land of Zarahemla, and had taken possession of the land. And it came to pass that Moroni and Pahoran went down with their armies into the land of Zarahemla, and went forth against the city, and did meet the men of Pachus, insomuch that they did come to battle. And behold, Pachus was slain, and his men were taken prisoners, and Pahoran was restored to his judgment seat. So they got it back. And the men of Pachus received their trial according to the law, and also those kingmen who had been taken and cast into prison. And they were executed according to the law, yea, those men of Pachus and those kingmen, whosoever would not take up arms in the defense of their country, but would fight against it, were put to death. Treason. And thus it became expedient that this law should be strictly observed for the safety of their country, yea, and whosoever was found denying their freedom was speedily executed according to the law. And thus ended the 30th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Moroni and Pahoran, having restored peace to the land of Zarahemla among their own people, having inflicted death upon all those who were not true to the cause of freedom. And it came to pass in the commencement of the 31st year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, Moroni immediately caused that provisions should be sent, and also an army of 6,000 men, so 6,000 more soldiers, should be sent unto Helaman to assist him in preserving that part of the land. And he also caused that an army of 6,000 men, with a sufficient quantity of food, should be sent to the armies of Lehi and Teancum. And it came to pass that this was done to fortify the land against the Lamanites. And it came to pass that Moroni and Pahoran, leaving a large body of men in the land of Zarahemla, took their march with a large body of men towards the land of Nephihah, being determined to overthrow the Lamanites in that city. And it came to pass, as they were marching towards the land, they took a large body of men of the Lamanites, and slew many of them, and took their provisions and their weapons of war. And it came to pass, after they had taken them, they caused them to enter into a covenant that they would no more take up their weapons of war against the Nephites. And when they had entered into this covenant, they sent them to dwell with the people of Ammon. And they were in number about 4,000 who had not been slain. And it came to pass that when they had sent them away, they pursued their march towards the land of Nephihah. And it came to pass that when they had come to the city of Nephihah, they did pitch their tents in the plains of Nephihah, which is near the city of Nephihah. Now Moroni was desirous that the Lamanites should come out to battle against them upon the plains, but the Lamanites, knowing of their exceedingly great courage, and beholding the greatness of their numbers, therefore they durst not come out against them. Therefore they did not come to battle in that day. And when the night came, I love that because they didn't want to come to battle because of their great courage. The Lamanites knew of the great courage of the Nephites. And their courage was based solely in God and in his deliverance, not in anything else. And when the night came, Moroni went forth in the darkness of the night, and came upon the top of the wall to spy out in what part of the city the Lamanites did camp with their army. I love that it's Moroni himself. He doesn't send someone else. Moroni's like, I'm going to go and spy. And it came to pass that they were on the east by the entrance, and they were all asleep. And now Moroni returned to his army and caused that they should prepare in haste strong cords and ladders to be let down from the top of the wall into the inner part of the wall. And it came to pass that Moroni caused that his men should march forth and come upon the top of the wall and let themselves down into that part of the city, yea, even on the west, where the Lamanites did not camp with their armies. So he looks inside these fortified strongholds of the Lamanites, this city. He climbs up on the wall, sees where they are. They're on the east side. And he's like, okay, we're going to go on the west side. And they get cords and ladders and things and lower themselves down into where the Lamanites are. And it came to pass that they were all let down into the city by night, by the means of their strong cords and their ladders, that when the morning came, they were all within the walls of the city. And now when the Lamanites awoke and saw that the armies of Moroni were within the walls, they were affrighted exceedingly, insomuch that they did flee out by the pass. And now when Moroni saw that they were fleeing before him, he did cause that his men should march forth against them, and slew many, and surrounded many others, and took them prisoners. And the remainder of them fled into the land of Moroni, which was in the borders by the seashore. Thus had Moroni and Pahoran obtained the possession of the city of Nephihah without the loss of one soul. And there were many of the Lamanites who were slain. So they got their city back. This is their own city of Nephihah. And it came to pass that many of the Lamanites that were prisoners were desirous to join the people of Ammon and become a free people. That's cool. And it came to pass that as many as were desirous, unto them it was granted according to their desires. That's really awesome of the Nephites, of Moroni and Pahoran, to let them go. So any of the prisoners of war that they got that wanted to be, the people of Ammon wanted to be a free people, anybody who wanted to, they let them go. They're like, okay, you can be free. Here you go. Therefore, all the prisoners of the Lamanites, because they're not stupid, right? All the prisoners of the Lamanites did join the people of Ammon, and did begin to labor exceedingly, tilling the ground, raising all manner of grain, and flocks, and herds of every kind. And thus were the Nephites relieved from a great burden, yea, insomuch that they were relieved from all the prisoners of the Lamanites. So that's really awesome. All these Lamanite prisoners wanted to be free. And then they decided to work. But it was of their own choice. They were not forced to. This is what they wanted, was the freedom. And they were tilling the ground, raising grain and flocks and herds and all of that. And now it came to pass that Moroni, after he had obtained possession of the city of Nephihah, having taken many prisoners, which did reduce the armies of the Lamanites exceedingly, and having regained many of the Nephites who'd been taken prisoners, which did strengthen the army of Moroni exceedingly, therefore Moroni went forth from the land of Nephihah to the land of Lehi. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that Moroni was coming against them, they were again frightened and fled before the army of Moroni. And it came to pass that Moroni and his army did pursue them from city to city until they were met by Lehi and Teancum. And the Lamanites fled from Lehi and Teancum even down upon the borders by the seashore until they came to the land of Moroni. And the armies of the Lamanites were all gathered together, insomuch that they were all in one body in the land of Moroni. Now Ammoron, the king of the Lamanites, was also with them. And it came to pass that Moroni and Lehi and Teancum did encamp with their armies round about in the borders of the land of Moroni, insomuch that the Lamanites were encircled about in the borders by the wilderness on the south, and in the borders of the wilderness on the east. And thus they did encamp for the night. For behold, Nephites and the Lamanites also were weary because of the greatness of the march. Therefore they did not resolve upon any stratagem in the nighttime, save it were Teancum, for he was exceedingly angry with Ammoron, insomuch that he considered that Ammoron and Amalickiah his brother had been the cause of this great and lasting war between them and the Lamanites, which had been the cause of so much war and bloodshed, yea, and so much famine. And it came to pass that Teancum in his anger did go forth into the camp of the Lamanites, and did let himself down over the walls of the city, so same tactic. And he went forth with a cord from place to place, insomuch that he did find the king, and he did cast a javelin at him, which did pierce him near the heart. But behold, the king did awaken his servants before he died, insomuch that they did pursue Teancum and slew him. So it's hard to say if that was the wrong thing, but I mean, Teancum was overtaken by his anger. He was exceedingly angry with Ammoron, but it was because he had killed so many of these good people in these lasting wars and bloodsheds. And they even said, we wouldn't fight you if you weren't trying to take our lands and capture our people and hurt us and take our freedoms. We wouldn't even want to fight you. But Teancum was just so angry with Ammoron, he came and threw a javelin in his heart, killed him, but he woke people up before he died. Now it came to pass that when Lehi and Moroni knew that Teancum was dead, and they were exceedingly sorrowful, for behold, he had been a man who had fought valiantly for his country, yea, a true friend of liberty, and he'd suffered very many exceedingly sore afflictions, but behold, he was dead, and had gone the way of all the earth. That is so sad. So that's how Teancum dies, because they slew him after he killed Ammoron. Now it came to pass that Moroni marched forth on the morrow, and came upon the Lamanites, insomuch that they did slay them with a great slaughter. And they did drive them out of the land, and they did flee, even that they did not return at that time against the Lamanites, against the Nephites. And thus ended the 31st year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. And thus they had wars and bloodsheds and famine and affliction for the space of many years. And there had been murders and contentions and dissensions and all manner of iniquity among the people of Nephi. Nevertheless, for the righteous' sake, yea, because of the prayers of the righteous, they were spared. But behold, because of the exceedingly great length of the war between the Nephites and the Lamanites, many had become hardened because of the exceedingly great length of the war, and many were softened because of their afflictions, insomuch that they did humble themselves before God, even in the depth of humility. So those are two different reactions to the exact same trials, and they lead to two different outcomes. Some were hardened by these wars, and some were softened and humble. And it came to pass that after Moroni had fortified those parts of the land which were most exposed to the Lamanites, until they were sufficiently strong, he returned to the city of Zarahemla, and also Helaman returned to the place of his inheritance. And there was once more peace established among the people of Nephi. And Moroni yielded up the command of his armies unto the hands of his son, whose name was Moroni-ha. And he retired to his own house, that he might spend the remainder of his days in peace. And Pahoran did return to his judgment seat, and Helaman did take upon him again to preach unto the people the word of God. For because of so many wars and contentions, it had become expedient that a regulation should be made again in the church. Therefore Helaman and his brethren went forth, and did declare the word of God, and with much power unto the convincing of many people of their wickedness, which did cause them to repent of their sins, and to be baptized unto the Lord their God. And it came to pass that they did establish again the church of God throughout all the land. Yea, and regulations were made concerning the law, and their judges and their chief judges were chosen. And the people of Nephi began to prosper again in the land, and began to multiply and to wax exceedingly strong again in the land, and they began to grow exceedingly rich. But notwithstanding their riches, or their strength, or their prosperity, they were not lifted up in the pride of their eyes, neither were they slow to remember the Lord their God. But they did humble themselves exceedingly before him. Yea, they did remember how great things the Lord had done for them, that he had delivered them from death, and from bonds, and from prisons, and from all manner of afflictions. And he had delivered them out of the hands of their enemies. And they did pray unto the Lord their God continually, insomuch that the Lord did bless them according to his word, so that they did wax strong and prosper in the land. And it came to pass that all these things were done, and Helaman died in the 35th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Chapter 63, the last chapter of the book of Alma. Shiblon and later Helaman take possession of the sacred records. Many Nephites travel to the land northward. Haggith builds ships which sail forth in the West Sea. Moronihah defeats the Lamanites in battle, about 56 to 52 BC. And it came to pass in the commencement of the 36th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, that Shiblon took possession of those sacred things which had been delivered unto Helaman by Alma. And he was a just man. He did walk uprightly before God. And he did observe to do good continually, to keep the commandments of the Lord his God, and also did his brother. And it came to pass that Moroni died also. It's so hard to say goodbye to these guys when they die. He was such an amazing hero with so much courage and so much conviction and so much passion and heart. I love Moroni. And thus ended the 36th year of the reign of the judges. And it came to pass in the 37th year of the reign of the judges, there was a large company of men, even to the amount of 5,400 men, with their wives and their children, departed out of the land of Zarahemla into the land which was northward. And it came to pass that Haggith, he being an exceedingly curious man, therefore he went forth and built him an exceedingly large ship on the borders of the land Bountiful, by the land Desolation, and launched it forth into the West Sea by the narrow neck which led into the land northward. I've heard different theories that Haggith could be one of the first Polynesians, and that Polynesians could be descendants of Haggith. I have no idea if that's true, but every time I read about Haggith, I'm like, maybe. I love the people who really dive deep into these theories and things, and I love to kind of read some of their findings and why they believe certain ways. So that's an interesting one, not the legend, but the theories regarding Haggith. I mean, he's intentionally in the Book of Mormon, and so there's a reason why we're supposed to seek out these mysteries. And behold, there were many of the Nephites who did enter therein, and did sail forth with much provisions, and also many women and children. And they took their course northward. And thus ended this 37th year. And in the 38th year, this man built other ships, and the first ship also did return. And many more people did enter into it. And they also took much provisions, and set out again to the land northward. And it came to pass that they were never heard of more. And we suppose that they were drowned in the depths of the sea. And it came to pass that one other ship also did sail forth, and whither she did go, we know not. So it would be amazing to be able to find where all these people went, all the countries and places that they landed with their ships. And hopefully they didn't drown in the depths of the sea. I don't know how they would know, because it wouldn't be any convenient way that they could communicate with them. But it says that it's supposed they were drowned. But maybe not. Maybe they went to another country that we don't know about. There's so much meat in the Book of Mormon. I love it, and I love studying these things out. And it came to pass that in this year there were many people who went forth into the land northward, and thus ended the 38th year. And it came to pass in the 39th year of the reign of the judges, Shiblon died also, and Corianton had gone forth to the land northward in a ship, to carry forth provisions unto the people who had gone forth into that land. Therefore it became expedient for Shiblon to confer those sacred things before his death upon the son of Helaman, who was called Helaman, being called after the name of his father. So remember, these are Alma's sons. So we have Alma the younger, and he's got Corianton, Shiblon, and Helaman. And we know the life that Helaman had. He was incredible. And then we also know Shiblon died. And then Corianton got on a ship and went northward, and we don't know what happened to him after that. Therefore, it became expedient for Shiblon to confer those sacred things. So then Shiblon is looking for Helaman's son, who's also called Helaman. Now behold, all those engravings which were in the possession of Helaman were written and sent forth among the children of men throughout all the land, save it were those parts which had been commanded by Alma should not go forth. Interesting. Nevertheless, these things were to be kept sacred and handed down from one generation to another. Therefore, in this year, they had been conferred upon Helaman before the death of Shiblon. So remember, Alma told Helaman, it's important that you know about these secret combinations, you know about these sacred oaths and the things that they do, but it's also important, vastly, incredibly important, that you don't share them and that you don't get into all of the details and all of the nuances of those satanic evil rituals and oaths that they do. And so that's what it's talking about in verse 12, that they sent all these things out except the part that Alma told Helaman not to have go forth, all of the evil things. And that's the same thing. I know I've gotten into this a lot, but a lot of this is coming out, and it's the same counsel that we should take. Is it's not important for us to go into the nitty-gritty of all the evil and all the smuck. We know it's there. It's enough for us to know that it's there. We should stay away from it. We don't need to learn about all their secret, awful oaths and things. Because Satan is a master mimicker. He has never done a creative, original thought in his whole existence. Everything he does is a mockery and a mimic. And he does that in order to confuse us and to try to sway us. But I also know that if what we had in our temples and our sacred oaths and our sacred covenants were not true and didn't have the power that they have, then the adversary wouldn't care. But he cares so much that he's created his own counterfeit. He's manufactured a whole separate dark world of mockery and mimicking and counterfeit, like I said. And so it just shows me what we have is true. Even more so, I don't need the adversary to go after it to know that. But if it wasn't true, he wouldn't care so much to create the mimics and the mockeries and the counterfeits. He wouldn't. He doesn't do things originally. So that's why it's important, when reiterating this again, Alma tells Helaman, know it's there, don't get into the nitty-gritty of it. Same thing for us. Nevertheless, these things were to be kept sacred and handed down from one generation to another. This is the good stuff, not the smug. Therefore, in this year they had been conferred upon Helaman before the death of Shiblon. And it came to pass also in this year that there were some dissenters who had gone forth unto the Lamanites, and they stirred up again to anger against the Nephites. And also in this same year, they came down with a numerous army to war against the people of Moronihah, or against the army of Moronihah, in the which they were beaten and driven back again to their own lands, suffering great loss. And thus ended the 39th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. And thus ended the account of Alma and Helaman his son, and also Shiblon, who was his son. The Book of Helaman. An account of the Nephites, their wars and contentions, and their dissensions, and also the prophecies of many holy prophets before the coming of Christ. This is when it's getting so exciting, because this mirrors exactly where we are right now. Exactly. According to the records of Helaman, who was the son of Helaman, and also according to the records of his sons, even down to the coming of Christ. And also many of the Lamanites are converted, an account of their conversion, an account of the righteousness of the Lamanites and the wickedness and abominations of the Nephites, according to the record of Helaman and his sons, even down to the coming of Christ, which is called the Book of Helaman, and so forth. So in these Helaman chapters, just to kind of give you an overview, in chapter 1, we're going to have political contention. Why don't you think through these things and tell me if this mirrors any of the stuff that we're seeing on our earth right now, in our world? Okay, chapter 1, political contention. Chapter 1, verse 15, war. Yep, we have wars all over the world, and we're going to have more wars. Chapter 2, we have secret combinations. Chapter 7, the righteous are condemned, and righteousness itself is condemned, and wickedness is defended. Is this not our world exactly? Chapter 7, verse 21, it's all about materialism and worldliness. And then in chapter 8, we have manipulation of public opinion. Pow! This is why these are so relevant to now. Pahoran II becomes chief judge and is murdered by Kishkumen. Pekumenai fills the judgment seat. Coriantumr leads the Lamanite armies, takes Zarahemla, and slays Pekumenai. Moronihah defends the Lamanites and retakes Zarahemla, and Coriantumr is slain. That was a whole bunch of things. So chapter 1 is a lot of things going on. Get ready. About 52 to 50 BC. And now behold, it came to pass in the commencement of the 40th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, there began to be a serious difficulty among the people of the Nephites. For behold, Pahoran had died and gone the way of all the earth. Isn't that a beautiful way of saying that? Gone the way of all the earth. It also implies that the earth will die. I've never thought about that before, actually. But that is a thing. We know that the earth will die. The telestial earth will die. And gone the way of all the earth. Therefore, there began to be a serious contention concerning who should have the judgment seat among the brethren, who were the sons of Pahoran. So here's our political contention. Now these are their names who did contend for the judgment seat, who did also cause the people to contend. Pahoran, Paankai, and Pekumenai. I used to say Pekumenai, but I always look up the pronunciation for the Book of Mormon, and they say Pekumenai, so Pekumenai, okay? Now these are not all the sons of Pahoran, for he had many, but these are they who did contend for the judgment seat. Therefore, they did cause 3 divisions among the people. Nevertheless, it came to pass that Pahoran was appointed by the voice of the people to be chief judge and a governor over the people of Nephi. And it came to pass that Pekumenai, when he saw that he could not obtain the judgment seat, he did unite with the voice of the people. But behold, Paankai, and that part of the people that were desirous that he should be their governor, was exceedingly wroth. Therefore he was about to flatter away those people to rise up in rebellion against their brethren. And it came to pass, as he was about to do this, behold, he was taken and was tried according to the voice of the people, and condemned unto death, for he had raised up in rebellion and sought to destroy the liberty of the people. Now when those people who were desirous that he should be their governor saw that he was condemned unto death, therefore they were angry, and behold, they sent forth one Kishkumen, even to the judgment seat of Pahoran, and murdered Pahoran as he sat upon the judgment seat. And he was pursued by the servants of Pahoran, but behold, so speedy was the flight of Kishkumen that no man could overtake him. And he went unto those that sent him, and they all entered unto a covenant, yea, swearing by their everlasting Maker that they would tell no man that Kishkumen had murdered Pahoran. Therefore, and you guys, this stuff still happens. Whether or not we're aware of it, I promise you it still happens. Like more than ever. Therefore, Kishkumen was not known among the people of Nephi, for he was in disguise at the time that he murdered Pahoran. And Kishkumen and his band, who had covenanted with him, did mingle themselves among the people in a manner that they all could not be found. But as many as were found were condemned unto death. So Kishkumen goes and murders Pahoran, and then makes all of his little friends swear by an oath to God, to their everlasting Maker, that they will never tell. So then their little group goes and kind of intermingles with all the others and are not going to say a word. But now they're out as like little spies that have this big secret. Secret combinations, guys. And now behold, Pechumeni was appointed according to the voice of the people. But as many as they found of the people that were like dispersed throughout, they were condemned unto death, but they couldn't find them all. And now behold, Pechumeni was appointed according to the voice of the people to be a chief judge and a governor over the people, to reign in the stead of his brother Pahoran. And it was according to his right, and all this was done in the 40th year of the reign of the judges, and it had an end. And it came to pass in the 41st year of the reign of the judges that the Lamanites had gathered together an innumerable army of men, and armed them with swords, and with scimitars, and with bows, and with arrows, and with headplates, and with breastplates, and with all manner of shields of every kind. And they came down again that they might pitch battle against the Nephites. And they were led by a man whose name was Coriantumr. He's a bad guy too. And he was a descendant of Zarahemla, and he was a dissenter from among the Nephites, and he was a large and a mighty man. Therefore the king of the Lamanites, whose name was Tubaloth, who was the son of Ammoron, supposing that Coriantumr, being a mighty man, could stand against the Nephites with his strength and also with his great wisdom, insomuch that by sending him forth he should gain power over the Nephites. Therefore he did stir them up to anger, and he did gather together his armies, and he did appoint Coriantumr to be their leader, and did cause that they should march down to the land of Zarahemla to battle against the Nephites. So there's a few bad guys we're talking about. Kishkumen, and he worked through subtlety, through disguise, and also through deceit, because he's the one that made his people, like that supported him, swear not to say, promise not to say anything. And then we have Coriantumr. Coriantumr is kind of emotion, aims for the heart. And then we have Gadianton. We'll get to him. And it came to pass that because of so much contention and so much difficulty in the government, that they had not kept sufficient guards in the land of Zarahemla. For they had supposed that the Lamanites durst not come into the heart of their lands to attack that great city Zarahemla. But it came to pass that Coriantumr did march forth at the head of his numerous host, and came upon the inhabitants of the city. And their march was with such exceedingly great speed, that there was no time for the Nephites to gather together their armies. Therefore Coriantumr did cut down the watch by the entrance of the city, and did march forth with his whole army into the city. And they did slay every one who did oppose them, insomuch that they did take possession of the whole city. And it came to pass that Pechumeni, who was the chief judge, did flee before Coriantumr, even to the walls of the city. And it came to pass that Coriantumr did smite him against the wall, insomuch that he died. And thus ended the days of Pechumeni. This is just like murder and secret combinations and bloodshed and carnage and pride and all of it. It's awful. And now when Coriantumr saw that he was in possession of the city of Zarahemla, and saw that the Nephites had fled before them and were slain, and were taken, and were cast into prison, and that he had obtained the possession of the strongest hold in all the land, his heart took courage, insomuch that he was about to go forth against all the land. And now he did not tarry in the land of Zarahemla, but he did march forth with a large army, even towards the city of Bountiful. For it was his determination to go forth and cut his way through with the sword, that he might obtain the north parts of the land. And supposing that their greatest strength was in the center of the land, therefore he did march forth, giving them no time to assemble themselves together, save it were in small bodies. And in this manner they did fall upon them, and cut them down to the earth. But behold, this march of Coriantumr through the center of the land gave Moronihah great advantage over them, notwithstanding the greatness of the number of the Nephites who were slain. For behold, Moronihah had supposed that the Lamanites durst not come into the center of the land, but that they would attack the cities round about in the borders as they had hitherto done. Therefore, Moronihah had caused that their strong armies should maintain those parts round about by the borders. But behold, the Lamanites were not frightened according to his desire. But they had come into the center of the land and had taken the capital city, which was the city of Zarahemla, and were marching through the most capital parts of the land, slaying the people with a great slaughter, both men, women, and children, taking possession of many cities and of many strongholds. But when Moronihah had discovered this, he immediately sent forth Lehi with an army round about to head them before they should come to the land bountiful. And thus he did. And he did head them before they came to the land bountiful, and gave unto them battle, insomuch that they began to retreat back towards the land of Zarahemla. And it came to pass that Moronihah did head them in their retreat, and to give battle unto them, insomuch that it became an exceedingly bloody battle. Yea, many were slain, and among the number who were slain, Coriantumr was also found. And now, behold, the Lamanites could not retreat either way, neither on the north, nor on the south, nor on the east, nor on the west, for they were surrounded on every hand by the Nephites. And thus had Coriantumr plunged the Lamanites into the midst of the Nephites, insomuch that they were in the power of the Nephites, and he himself was slain. And the Lamanites did yield themselves into the hands of the Nephites. And it came to pass that Moronihah took possession of the city of Zarahemla again, and caused that the Lamanites who'd been taken prisoners should depart out of the land in peace. And thus ended the 41st year of the reign of the judges.